Ambassador Thomas Reed stepped off the shuttle onto the gleaming platform of Nexus Station, humanity's farthest diplomatic outpost. The massive space station orbited the border world of Targus, home to the most belligerent of the Galactic Confederation species, the Vex. With scaled skin that shimmered like oil on water and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, the Vex representatives waiting for him were an intimidating sight. "Ambassador Reed," the tallest Vex hissed, "we expected your arrival 3 rotations ago." Thomas smiled diplomatically. "My apologies, High Commander Drav. There were complications. Those complications had a name. The Vex Border Patrol that had fired on his diplomatic vessel despite its clear markings. Only the exceptional piloting of Captain Lisa Morgan had saved their lives. The incident marked the 14th accidental attack on human ships in as many weeks. The Confederation Council grows impatient with human delays, Drav said, his translator struggling to convert the complex harmonics of Vex speech. And humanity grows impatient with Confederation aggression, Thomas replied, his smile never wavering. But that's why I'm here. To ensure neither side's patience runs out completely. Thomas followed the Vex delegation through the station's grand corridors. Nexus Station represented the pinnacle of interspecies engineering, a marvel of technology where the atmospheres, gravities, and environments of 12 different species coexisted in careful balance. "Your quarters," Drav indicated, gesturing, to a doorway that irised open at their approach. "Thank you. I'll prepare for tomorrow's negotiations." Once alone, Thomas activated his secure comms. "Command, Reed reporting in. Things are tense here." Admiral Wilson's hologram materialized. Her weathered face betrayed concern. "We've intercepted communications, Thomas. The Vex are planning something. The monitoring stations near the Void are picking up unusual activity." The Void, that mysterious region at the galaxy's edge where stars seem to vanish without explanation. Scientists had been studying it for decades, but only humanity's researchers had made any significant progress understanding its nature. "What kind of activity?" Thomas asked. "Energy signatures unlike anything we've recorded. And they all started the moment the Confederation voted against humanity's full membership last month." Thomas frowned. "I've brought the device as instructed." Wilson's expression darkened. "It's only to be used as an absolute last resort, Ambassador. If you activate it..." "I know the consequences, Admiral. Let's hope it doesn't come to that." After the call ended, Thomas removed a small metallic cube from his secure case. Its surface rippled with patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could perceive. The culmination of humanity's secret research into the Void. The device represented both humanity's greatest achievement and potentially its most terrible weapon. As Thomas prepared his diplomatic notes for the morning session, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Outside his window, the distant stars seemed dimmer somehow, as though a shadow were passing across the galaxy itself. In the corridor, Commander Drav spoke quietly into his communicator. "The human has arrived, and yes, our sensors confirm he's brought it with him. Proceed with the plan." The negotiations chamber hummed with tension. Representatives from 7 Confederation species sat around a circular table, their environmental bubbles creating a rainbow of atmospheric conditions. Thomas sat alone on the human side, facing the united front of alien diplomats. "The Confederation's position remains unchanged," announced Mox, the tentacled Brill representative. "Humanity's application for full membership is denied on grounds of technological incompatibility." Thomas leaned forward. "Incompatibility? Humanity has met every requirement outlined in the Charter. Our technology advances too rapidly. And in unpredictable directions," interrupted Loral, the crystalline Eden diplomat. "Your species developed faster than light travel only 50 years after discovering nuclear fission. Such progression defies natural development curves." What they meant, Thomas knew, was that humanity scared them. In the mere century since Earth's first contact with the Confederation, humans had reverse-engineered and improved upon technologies that had taken other species millennia to develop. "This meeting isn't truly about membership, is it?" Thomas asked, his voice cutting through the chamber's tension. "It's about the Void research." A ripple of discomfort passed through the alien representatives. Commander Drav's scales darkened. "The Void is not to be tampered with. Your species' obsession with it threatens the stability of the galactic ecosystem." "We're scientists," Not tamperers, Thomas countered. And our research indicates the void isn't natural. It's expanding, consuming stars at an accelerating rate. Within a century, it could reach populated systems. The revelation sparked a flurry of translated whispers. Thomas pressed his advantage. What my government proposes is a joint research initiative. Full data sharing, collaborative technology development. If the void is a threat, we face it together. As Thomas spoke, he noticed Drav and Mox exchange a glance that his diplomatic training recognized immediately as duplicity. Something wasn't right. The meeting adjourned for a recess, and Thomas retreated to a small observation deck to collect his thoughts. Captain Morgan joined him there, her uniform crisp despite the tension evident in her stance. "They're lying about something," Thomas said quietly. Morgan nodded. "And our security team reports unusual movement in the station's restricted sections. They're preparing something." Thomas looked out at the stars. "Have you noticed they seem dimmer today?" "It's not just your imagination," Morgan confirmed. "Long-range sensors show a 20% reduction in output from the nearest star. The effect increases the closer you get to the void sector." Thomas felt the weight of the device in his jacket pocket. "Contact Admiral Wilson. Tell her to put the fleet on standby alert." When the negotiations reconvened, Thomas noticed two things. Immediately, Commander Drav was absent, and the previously hostile representatives now seemed almost accommodating. "After careful consideration," Loral announced, "the Confederation is prepared to offer Earth conditional membership, provided all void research data is surrendered to our science directorate." Thomas smiled diplomatically while alarm bells rang in his mind. Their sudden reversal could only mean one thing. They'd found another way to get what they wanted. As he formulated his response, Thomas's secure communicator vibrated with an emergency signal. Captain Morgan's voice came through, tense and hurried. "Ambassador, we've detected explosives throughout the human sector of the station. They're moving to take the device." The diplomatic chamber erupted into chaos as Thomas bolted from his seat. Warning klaxons blared throughout Nexus Station, their urgent wail cutting through the previously civil atmosphere. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in pulsing red. As Thomas ran, his diplomatic training forgotten in the face of imminent danger. "Lock down the human section," he ordered into his communicator. "No one in or out," Captain Morgan's voice crackled back. "Too late. They've breached the security doors. Our team is engaged with Vex commandos on multiple levels." Thomas rounded a corner and nearly collided with two Vex soldiers. Their weapons raised, but Thomas was quicker, dropping to the floor as Morgan appeared behind him, her service weapon already firing. The non-lethal stun round sent the Vex into convulsions. "This way," Morgan urged, helping Thomas to his feet. "We need to reach the shuttle bay." As they navigated the station's winding corridors, Thomas clutched the device. Its surface had begun to pulse with a faint blue glow that matched his racing heartbeat. "They're trying to stop our research," Thomas gasped as they ran. "But why attack so openly? The Confederation values diplomatic protocol above everything." "Maybe they learned something we don't know yet," Morgan replied, checking around a corner before motioning him forward. They reached a maintenance junction where Lieutenant Park, the shuttle pilot, waited with two security officers. His face was grim. "The main shuttle bay is compromised," Park reported. "But there's an emergency evacuation pod on level 3 that might still be operational." A distant explosion rocked the station, sending tremors through the deck plating. The lights flickered ominously. "What was that?" Thomas demanded. One of the security officers checked her tactical display. "They've detonated charges in the station's power core. We've got maybe 20 minutes before critical systems fail." "They're willing to destroy Nexus?" Thomas couldn't hide his shock. "There are 12,000 civilians aboard." "I don't think they care anymore," Morgan said grimly. "Whatever they want, it's worth the price of war." Thomas clutched the device tighter, feeling its warmth through his palm. "They want this. They're willing to kill everyone here to get it." They moved quickly through maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where firefights between human security and Vex forces raged. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated, occasionally sending them floating momentarily before slamming them back to the deck. When they reached the evacuation pod, Park quickly began the launch sequence while Morgan and the security team established a defensive perimeter. Thomas looked out a viewport and froze. The stars. Outside, the vacuum of space appeared different. The stars were visibly dimmer, some winking out even as he watched. And beyond, where the void region should have been barely visible at this distance, a creeping darkness now consumed nearly a quarter of the visible sky. "It's accelerating," Thomas whispered. "The void expansion. It's happening thousands of times faster than our models predicted." A barrage of weapons fire announced the arrival of Vex forces. The security team returned fire, but they were outnumbered. One officer fell, then another. Captain Morgan took a hit to her shoulder but continued firing. "We need another minute." "For launch!" Park shouted from the pod's controls. Thomas made his decision. "Get the pod ready. I'll hold them off." "Ambassador, no!" Morgan protested. "That's an order, Captain." Thomas removed the device from his pocket and pressed it into her hands. "Get this back to Earth. Whatever happens, the Confederation can't have it." Before she could argue further, Thomas seized a fallen officer's weapon and moved to the corridor entrance. He had never been a soldier, but every human in space service received basic combat training. As Morgan and Park retreated into the evacuation pod, Thomas stood his ground against the advancing Vex forces. Commander Drav himself led them, his scales flaring with aggression. "Surrender the device, human," Drav demanded. "Your research has doomed us all." "Our research was trying to save us," Thomas countered, weapon raised. "Lies," Drav snarled. "We intercepted your transmissions. We know what the device does. It doesn't stop the void, it controls it." Thomas's world slowed as the truth dawned on him. Someone had fed the Confederation false information. Someone wanted this conflict. The evacuation pod's engines fired up, behind him as Drav raised his weapon. In the final moment before plasma fire engulfed him, Ambassador Thomas Reed saw the stars outside blink out one by one, like candles extinguished by an invisible breath. Captain Lisa Morgan clutched the device as the evacuation pod hurtled away from Nexus Station. Through the viewport, she watched in horror as explosions blossomed across the station's gleaming surface. Thousands of lives, extinguished in moments. And Thomas, Ambassador Reed, was among them. "They'll pursue us," Lieutenant Park said grimly from the pilot's seat. His hands moved frantically over the controls, coaxing every bit of speed from the small craft. Morgan winced as she applied emergency sealant to her wounded shoulder. "Set course for the Helios outpost. It's our closest secure facility." The device in her hand had grown warmer, its surface now rippling with patterns that seemed to move of their own accord. As she watched, the strange geometric designs aligned, momentarily into what appeared to be a map of the local star cluster, with the void region prominently highlighted. "What did Reed mean when he said the Confederation can't have this?" Park asked, glancing back. Morgan shook her head. "I don't know exactly. It's the culmination of Project Prometheus, our most classified void research. Only Admiral Wilson and a handful of scientists understand its true purpose." A warning light flashed on the console. "2 Vex interceptors closing fast," Park announced. "Weapons range in 40 seconds. Morgan moved to the communications array. "This is Captain Morgan of Earth Diplomatic Corps requesting emergency assistance. We are under attack by Confederation forces in violation of all treaties. Authentication code: Alpha 9 Epsilon Victor." Static was her only answer. Then, to her surprise, a familiar voice broke through. "Captain Morgan, this is Admiral Wilson. Your signal is weak but readable." "What's your situation?" Morgan reported. "Quickly, the attack, the ambassador's death, their current pursuit." "We have the device, Admiral, but I don't know if we can outrun them." There was a pause before Wilson responded. "The device must reach Earth at all costs, Captain. If the Vex take it, the consequences would be catastrophic." "I need to know what we're carrying, Admiral," Morgan insisted. "What does it do?" Another pause, longer this time. Outside, the stars continued to dim at an alarming rate. Entire constellations had vanished from view. "It's a key, Captain," Wilson finally said. "A key to technology left behind by a civilization that predates all known species. They created the void as a shield, a barrier against something worse. The device can restore that shield, or disable it completely." The pod shuddered as the first shots from the pursuing Vex ship struck nearby. Park executed a series of evasive maneuvers, but the small craft wasn't designed for combat. The Vex believe we intend to use it as a weapon, Wilson continued, to expand the void and swallow their worlds. That's why they attacked. And do we? Morgan asked, dreading the answer. No. But there are factions within our own government who see the device's strategic value. That's why Ambassador Reed was given strict protocols. The device activates in response to certain genetic markers, human genetic markers. If the Vex obtain it, they can't use it, but they can destroy it, which would leave us all defenseless against whatever lies beyond the void. A direct hit rocked the pod, sending Morgan sprawling. Warning lights flooded the cabin as life support systems began to fail. We're losing power, Park shouted, fighting with the controls. Morgan looked down at the device. Its patterns had changed again, now forming what appeared to be a countdown sequence. Admiral, the device is activating on its own. That's impossible, Wilson's voice crackled through increasing interference. Unless... The transmission cut off as another hit disabled their communications array. Through the viewport, Morgan watched in astonishment as darkness swept across space like an ink blot spreading on paper. The stars weren't just dimming. They were being consumed by the rapidly expanding void. The Vex ships have broken off pursuit, Park reported incredulously. They're retreating. The device grew hotter in Morgan's hands, almost too hot to hold. Its surface had become entirely transparent, revealing intricate mechanisms that seemed to operate in dimensions she couldn't comprehend. It's reacting to the void's expansion, she realized. But why now? What triggered it? Park's face went pale as he looked at the sensor readings. Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy wave approaching from the direction of Nexus Station. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. As the wave hit them, the pod's systems failed completely. In the sudden darkness, the only light came from the device itself, which now projected a holographic display showing the galaxy and the void consuming it at an impossible rate. Ambassador Reed, Morgan whispered, understanding dawning. They didn't just kill him. They killed the one person whose genetic signature could control the device. In the eerie glow of the hologram, Captain Morgan and Lieutenant Park watched helplessly as the stars went out. The evacuation pod drifted in the expanding darkness, its systems dead except for minimal life support. Captain Morgan stared at the device, which continued its holographic projection of the galaxy's consumption. Each passing minute showed more. Stars vanishing, more systems being swallowed by the relentless void. How long until it reaches Earth? Park asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Morgan calculated quickly. At this rate? Less than 72 hours. The device's projection shifted suddenly, zooming in on a specific sector near the original void boundary. A single point of light pulsed there, somehow resistant to the encroaching darkness. What is that? Park leaned closer. Before Morgan could respond, the device emitted a high-pitched tone. The hologram disappeared, replaced by the face of Ambassador Thomas Reed. If you're seeing this message, the recording began, then I'm dead, and the failsafe has activated, Morgan gasped. He knew they would try to kill him. Reed's holographic face looked grim. The device contains more than just the key to the void barrier. It holds the complete knowledge of the predecessors, the species that created the void as a shield against something they called the Hunger, something that devours stars, planets, entire civilizations. The hologram shifted to show ancient glyphs and diagrams that Morgan couldn't begin to comprehend. The predecessors discovered that this hunger could be repelled by creating artificial regions of altered physics, what we call the void. They established these barriers throughout the galaxy, but over millennia, the barriers weakened. The void we've been studying was just one of many such barriers, but it was failing faster than the others. Reed's face returned. Our scientists learned that the device responds to specific genetic signatures. Signatures that, by some cosmic coincidence, match certain human DNA patterns. Mine is one of them. With the correct carrier, the device can repair the void barriers. Without it, the hunger will consume everything. Morgan looked out into the starless void surrounding them. So when they killed him, they triggered the failsafe, Park realized. Without Reed's genetic signature to maintain control, the device interpreted his death as catastrophic barrier failure. The hologram continued. If I've been killed, the device will have initiated emergency protocols. It will seek the nearest compatible genetic signature to re-establish control. Captain Morgan, I suspect that will be you. Morgan's eyes widened. Me? During your security screening, your DNA was flagged as a partial match to the predecessor. Patterns. Not strong enough for full activation, but enough for basic functions. Place your palm on the device's central node and repeat the phrase, Lux contra tenebras. With trembling hands, Morgan positioned the device as instructed. Its surface had cooled, becoming almost crystalline in appearance. Lux contra tenebras, she whispered. Light erupted from the device, so bright that both Morgan and Park had to shield their eyes. When the light subsided, the device had transformed, unfolding like an intricate puzzle box to reveal a glowing crystal core. Partial genetic match confirmed, a melodic voice announced, not Reed's recording, but something older, something alien. Emergency protocols engaged. Sentinel mode activated. The pod's dead systems suddenly flared back to life. On the displays, new information appeared, coordinates, navigational data, power readings far beyond the pod's normal capabilities. The device is interfacing with our systems, Park said incredulously. It's giving us a destination. Morgan studied the coordinates. This is deep in what was void space. There's nothing there. Nothing that we knew of, Park corrected. But the predecessors obviously built something there. Outside, a strange phenomenon was occurring. The absolute darkness of the expanding void was being punctuated by pinpricks of light. Not stars, but something else, something artificial. Beacons, the device's voice explained, as if reading Morgan's thoughts. Emergency navigation points for Sentinel carriers. Follow their guidance to reach the Nexus core. Park engaged the mysteriously restored engines, and the pod surged forward. With power it shouldn't have possessed. They accelerated into the darkness, following the trail of alien beacons. What's the Nexus core? Morgan asked the device. The central control hub for all void barriers, it replied. From there, a properly matched genetic carrier can reactivate the defensive network. As they traveled deeper into the void, Morgan thought about Ambassador Reed's sacrifice, about the billions of lives now dependent on their success. The Confederation had acted out of fear and ignorance, killing the one person who might have saved them all. There's something ahead, Park announced as they approached the final beacon. Before them, materializing out of the darkness like a mirage, was a massive structure, a perfect sphere composed of interlocking geometric patterns similar to those that had adorned the device. It hung in space, neither reflecting nor emitting light, yet somehow visible against the absolute blackness of the void. The Nexus core, the device confirmed. Last refuge of the predecessors and humanity's final hope. As their pod approached, the enormous sphere, a section of its surface reconfigured, creating an opening just large enough for them to enter. Captain, Park said quietly. If we fail, Morgan gripped the transformed device tightly. We won't fail. Humanity didn't come this far across the stars to be extinguished now. They crossed the threshold into the ancient alien structure, carrying, with them, the last hope of every living being in the galaxy. The interior of the Nexus core defied human comprehension. Corridors shifted and realigned as Morgan and Park walked through them, guided by the device's soft illumination. Surfaces that appeared solid one moment would become transparent the next, revealing glimpses of machinery that operated according to physical laws Morgan couldn't begin to understand. It's responding to you, Park observed as yet another barrier dissolved at Morgan's approach. It recognizes the device, and your partial genetic signature. The device itself had continued its transformation, now resembling a translucent gauntlet that Morgan wore on her right hand. Its crystal core pulsed in time with her heartbeat, sending tendrils of light up her arm that didn't hurt but left her skin tingling with energy. Central chamber approaching, the device announced. Prepare for temporal shift. Temporal shift, Morgan repeated. What is that? The world around them blurred. Morgan felt a sensation like being stretched and compressed simultaneously. When her vision cleared, they stood in a vast spherical chamber. At its center floated a complex arrangement of crystalline structures similar to the device's core, but vastly larger. The Void Engine, the device explained. Creation and control mechanism for all void barriers. A new voice echoed through the chamber, deep, resonant, and inhuman. You are not Vrax. A figure materialized before them. Humanoid, but clearly not human. Its body appeared to be composed of the same crystalline material as the Void engine, with patterns of light flowing through it like blood through veins. I am Sentinel Ket, the figure announced. Last guardian of the Nexus Core. Morgan stepped forward. Ambassador Reed is dead. The Void barriers are failing. The crystalline being studied her. You carry a conductor, yet your pattern is incomplete. How came you to possess such technology? We found it, Morgan answered honestly. On an abandoned world near the edge of what we call the Void. Our scientists studied it, and Ambassador Reed discovered he could activate it. The Vrax are gone, Ket stated, more to himself than to them. Consumed by the hunger or fled beyond the galaxy's edge. After 1,000,000 years, their genetic pattern resurfaces in your species? Fascinating. Park spoke up. This hunger, what is it? The chamber darkened, and around them appeared a three-dimensional representation of the galaxy. Stars, planets, nebulae in perfect detail. Then, at the edges, patches of absolute nothingness began to spread. The hunger existed before. Stars, Ket explained. A primordial entropy that devours energy, matter, even space-time itself. The Vrax discovered it consuming entire systems at the galaxy's rim and created the Void barriers, regions of altered physics that could contain it. The hologram showed the spread of darkness halted by brilliant walls of energy. The original Void barriers. But maintaining the barriers required constant attention, Ket continued. The conductors, what you call devices, allowed genetically compatible individuals to control and repair the network. When the last Vrax died, the system entered dormancy, preserving minimum containment until new controllers could be found. And now the barriers are failing completely, Morgan concluded. Because your ambassador was killed, Ket confirmed. The emergency protocols interpreted his death as systemic failure and began shutting down all barriers to conserve energy for one final restart. Morgan raised her device-covered hand. Can we still restart the system? Stop the hunger? Ket's crystalline face showed what might have been concern. Your pattern is incomplete. A full restart requires a perfect genetic match. There must be something we can do, Park insisted. Billions will die if we fail. Ket was silent for a moment, lights pulsing through his transparent form. There is one possibility. A partial pattern can be amplified through direct neural interface with the Void engine. What does that mean? Morgan asked. It means, Ket said gravely, you would need to physically connect with the engine. Your consciousness would merge with the system. You might be able to restart the barriers, but your physical form would not survive the process. The chamber fell silent as Morgan absorbed the implications. Self-sacrifice. It was the only way. Park grabbed her arm. There has to be another way. We can return to Earth, find someone with a stronger genetic match. There's no time, Morgan interrupted, looking at the galactic hologram where the darkness continued to spread. At this rate, Earth will be consumed in less than a day. She turned to Ket. What do I need to do? The crystalline sentinel indicated the Void engine at the chamber's center. Place your conductor in the central node. Your consciousness will be drawn into the system. If your will is strong enough, you can reactivate the barriers before your physical form deteriorates. Morgan removed the device gauntlet and handed her communicator to Park. Return to the pod. Get as far from the core as you can and transmit everything we've learned back to Earth. I won't leave you, Park protested. That's an order, Lieutenant, Morgan said firmly. Humanity needs to know what happened here. They need to understand the Void, the hunger, all of it, so they can prepare for the future. Park reluctantly saluted. It has been an honor, Captain. As he departed, Morgan approached the Void engine. Its crystalline components rotated and realigned in response to her proximity. Your sacrifice will be remembered, Ket said solemnly. If you succeed, the barriers will hold for another 1,000 years, giving your species time to learn, to grow, perhaps even to surpass the Vrax. Morgan thought of Ambassador Reed, of his final stand to protect the device. She thought of Earth, of humanity spreading among the stars, unaware of the ancient darkness held at bay. Will it hurt? She asked quietly. No, Ket answered. Your consciousness will expand beyond physical sensation. You will become part of something greater, a guardian of all that lives. Morgan took a deep breath and placed the device into the waiting receptacle at the heart of the void engine. Immediately, energy surged up her arm, enveloping her body in brilliant light. As her physical form began to dissolve into pure energy, Captain Lisa Morgan had one final thought. For Earth. For all of us. Her consciousness expanded outward, racing, along ancient networks that spanned the galaxy. She saw everything at once. Every star, every planet, every living being threatened by the encroaching hunger. And with a thought that echoed across light years, she commanded, "Restore." Lieutenant James Park guided the evacuation pod through the strange luminescence now filling the void where stars had vanished. Behind him, the massive sphere of the Nexus core pulsed with increasing intensity, waves of energy radiating outward like ripples on a cosmic pond. His instruments registered phenomena that defied explanation. Space itself seemed to be folding and unfolding, reality reshaping according to rules he couldn't comprehend. The pod's simple sensors were overwhelmed, screens flickering between readings that couldn't possibly be correct. "Captain Morgan," he whispered, watching the Nexus core grow smaller in the distance. "Whatever you're doing in there, it's working." The communications array suddenly activated, crackling with static before resolving into a familiar voice. Yet not quite the same. It was Morgan's voice, but layered with harmonics that gave it an otherworldly quality. "Lieutenant Park," the voice said, "the process is different than expected. My consciousness has merged with the void engine, but also with others." "Others?" Park questioned. "Captain, what's happening to you?" "The previous controllers," Morgan's voice explained. "Their consciousness patterns were preserved within the system. I am still Lisa Morgan, but I am also more. The barriers are being restored, but the process is complex. The damage was more extensive than Ket understood." Through the viewport, Park witnessed the impossible. Where there had been only darkness, pinpricks of light began to reappear. Stars blinking back into existence as if someone were simply turning on switches across the cosmos. "The stars," he breathed. "They're coming back." "Not coming back," Morgan corrected. "Being rebuilt. The hunger consumed them entirely. What you see are stellar reconstruction matrices, temporary energy projections that will stabilize into actual stars over time." Park's scientific mind reeled at the implications. Technology that could reconstruct stars? That could reweave the very fabric of spacetime? It was beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. "Can you come back?" he asked hesitantly. "Return to your physical form?" A pause, filled with strange harmonics that made the pod systems flutter. "No," Morgan finally answered. "That path is closed. But I'm not gone, James. I have become something new. Something necessary. The void barriers must have guardians, consciousness to direct their maintenance and adaptation. That is my role now." Park wiped moisture from his eyes. "Earth needs to know what happened. They need to understand." "Yes," Morgan agreed. "Return to Earth. Tell them everything. The Confederation must also be told. They acted out of fear and misunderstanding. But they are not our enemies. We must forge a new alliance, one that acknowledges the greater threat." The pod's navigational system suddenly came to life, displaying a clear path back to human space. A path that shouldn't have been possible given their previous position deep within the void. "I've created a transit corridor for you," Morgan explained. "You will reach Earth within hours." As Park engaged the engines following the mapped route, he noticed something extraordinary happening outside. The restored stars were different, brighter, somehow more vibrant than before, and between them, streams of energy connected solar systems in patterns reminiscent of a neural network. "What am I seeing?" he asked. "The beginning of a new defense network," Morgan replied. "Not just barriers to contain the hunger, but an active monitoring system spanning the galaxy. The Vrax could only build barriers. Humanity's contribution, through me, is to create something more dynamic, more resilient. Park nodded, understanding, dawning. Because we adapt. Because change is what humans do best. Precisely. Morgan's voice held a note of pride. That is why Ambassador Reed's genetic pattern could activate the device. Why mine could restore the system. Human adaptability, encoded in our very DNA, was the missing element in the Vrax design. As the pod accelerated along the transit corridor, streams of light seeming to propel it forward at impossible speeds, Park asked one final question. Will we see you again, Captain? The harmonics in Morgan's voice softened. Look to the stars, Lieutenant. I am there now, in all of them. And when humanity ventures further into the galaxy, beyond the old boundaries, I will be waiting. We not. Days later, Lieutenant Park stood before the combined leadership of Earth's government and military, his testimony broadcast to every human colony and settlement. Beside him stood Admiral Wilson, grim-faced, but determined. The threat was real, Park concluded. The hunger exists, and it remains contained only because of Captain Morgan's sacrifice. But the galaxy has changed. The stars have been reborn with new properties, new potential, and humanity's role in the cosmos has been forever altered. Admiral Wilson stepped forward. We have established contact with the Confederation leadership. They have acknowledged their error in attacking Ambassador Reed, though the damage cannot be undone. A new diplomatic summit is being arranged, one where humanity will not petition for membership, but will stand as equals offering vital knowledge. Around the room, displays showed real-time images of the transformed galaxy. Stars that had once been ordinary fusion reactors now pulsed with organized energy, connected by visible streams of force that astronomers were already calling Morgan's Web. The stars went out, Park said solemnly. But they returned brighter than before. Humanity's first diplomat died in violence, but his death led to humanity's greatest ambassador, a human consciousness now woven into the very fabric of the galaxy itself. As the summit concluded, Park returned to his quarters and looked out the window at the night sky. The stars seemed to twinkle in patterns that hadn't existed before, almost like Morse code or some other deliberate signal. His communicator chimed with an incoming message from an unknown source. When he opened it, only 5 words appeared on the screen. They killed me. I evolved. Park smiled up at the stars, now forever watched over by what Captain Morgan had become. Humanity, he whispered. Fuck yeah.